Welcome to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. We are in New York in the studio, and I have two very special guests with me today on the show. We have Nikki and Randy. Welcome to Let's Get Vulnerable here in the studio. I am so excited. My gosh.
We're excited to be here.
So you are both people that I have had the joy of working with, and you got married. And we are going to tell the whole story of how that happened. And I just know that the audience is going to love your love story just like I do. And spoiler alert, I did get to go to the wedding. I was so excited in Central Park last October. But let's back up. Let's tell this whole story, start from the beginning. Can you each kind of tell me a little bit about your love story, how you first met, and just how we got to where we are now?
Yep. So we met online, 2018.
Yep.
We met on a site called The League, and we just kind of instantly hit it off. We actually couldn't meet for a bit, so we talked on the phone and we texted a lot, and I think that made it really comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first met up, I knew I really liked him. It was just a matter of, was there chemistry? And there was. And we kind of just instantly started dating, had this really great, amazing relationship for a little over a year.
Yeah.
And then we broke up.
And Randy, what was happening in the breakup? Not to say, just to hear from you.
Yeah. I mean, it came down to, we met. It was not even a year after I had moved out of my house, after getting divorced. And even though it was great and we met and, like Nikki mentioned, it was just a great relationship. I just wasn't ready for this to be it. I think I felt like I needed a little bit more time. And even though there were no issues with the relationship, I was just feeling like I wasn't ready to jump back into something so serious so quickly. So even though it came out of the blue for her, it was kind of something that was building up in me for a little bit.
Is it fair to say that you feel like you just had some things you needed to process and work through?
Yeah, definitely. I think I just needed time. I was still a newly single guy, for lack of a better term. And I just needed to make sure,
Yeah.
And even though it was great. I needed to just make sure that this was going to be it. And
Absolutely.
so I was just having these feelings like that I might, will I regret this 5 years from now that I didn't give it more time to kind of see what the world is like as a single person.
That makes sense. And how was that for you, Nikki, going through that breakup?
It was really difficult. I thought
you were in love.
I was totally in love. And I had spent a lot of time by myself. I had not had a long relationship in years. I had not had a good relationship in years. And he, not only did I genuinely like him and love him, he fit everything that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And as he alluded to, I had no idea that it was coming. So he was having all these feelings and he wasn't sharing any of them with me. And I mean, understandably, right? It's a hard thing to talk about. And I think he was trying to figure it out. And then it was just all of a sudden, we actually went to go visit our families in Florida to spend the holidays together. Parents got together and all that stuff. And then we broke up.
Like 3
the day
days
we got
later.
back. Yeah. Or 2
Oh my gosh. So
Yes.
difficult.
Yeah. So
Randy, that must have been hard too for you.
It was, because we were actually last weekend, we were down in Florida visiting our parents, and my father actually doesn't even remember this, but I had a conversation with him. We both got up early one morning, and I had a conversation with him about, hey, I'm just having these feelings, and I'm not sure if I'm ready, and and he of course said, hey, you have to do what makes you happy, and I reminded him of that conversation because he was saying how, we were so surprised when you guys broke up that time. And I said, well, don't you remember we had that conversation?
I told you.
And he was like, no, I don't remember. And my mother said, well, you should have told me. I would have remembered.
Oh my gosh.
So that was actually the first time we'd been back together.
Oh, okay.
Because we have a dog, so it's hard to travel sometimes. So we both gone down separately, but we hadn't all been together. And then like my mom and his parents getting together, like all of us. So it was really the first time we had been back. And it's crazy actually how different it is than even that time when I thought everything was amazing. It's just a completely like different experience at this point.
Okay. So now the audience is like, how did these people end up married?
Right.
So take us through what happened. And I know obviously we'll talk about the work that you both did on yourselves, but the timeline of how did you reconnect and rekindle?
Yep. I'll probably leave that to you because you're the one that reached out.
Yeah.
Sure. So as Nikki mentioned, it was late 2019. And then, obviously COVID hit early 2020. So it was kind of a dead period, right, where not a lot happened. I had actually met somebody towards the end of 2020. We dated her. We dated for, I don't know, about a year and a half or so. And I think
I'll interrupt for 1 second and just say that we were still friends on Facebook. So I saw all those pictures of him with somebody else and
the heart crushing
and all that kind of stuff. So
okay,
I knew he was with somebody else.
You knew he was with someone.
Yeah. Okay. And, I think I knew she wasn't the right person for me. And apparently everybody around me knew she wasn't the right person for me. Never really kind of just said, we'll let him figure it out for himself. I mean, she was a lot younger than me and just different in like every way from Nikki, really, pretty much. And, I realized, that it was going to end. And, in pre-work Randy style, I kind of just abruptly ended it with her.
Yeah.
And kind of that's the way I operated before. And I, like 3 days later, I had sent Nikki a text. And it's funny because right when I told my mother that I broke up with the other girl, the other woman, my mother said, "Oh, you should reach out to Nikki." And it's funny because that was the first time that I really ever heard anything from my parents definitively how much they liked Nikki the first time, because they never really verbalized like, "Oh, we really love her. I hope you guys stay together." I never really knew how they felt about us or about Nikki. But then when I broke up with this other person, my mother says, "Oh, you should reach out to Nikki." I said, "Oh, okay." I guess they really liked her. So I sent her
Well, that's not why you did it, though.
No, obviously that's not why I did it, but it was kind of just an interesting side note. So I sent her a text and I said, "Hey, I know this is out of the blue and we haven't spoken in 3 years, but I was just wondering, would you be interested in getting together?" And I happen to have tickets. There was a Titanic immersive show thing, display going on in the city. And I said, "I have tickets for this. If you would, be interested in going with me, here's the date, let me know." And then I just waited.
And we were working together at the time, and you reached out to me, SOS.
Yep. I had done the program. I was done with all that. And then it was funny because I got the text and I was in such a good place.
Yeah.
And there was definitely like a part of me that thought like, this isn't the last that we've like ever spoken.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I was like, yep. Like I knew that was coming at some point, but I just, but I also was just in such a good place that I was like more like intrigued and not like, oh my God, what does this mean? And
you were curious.
I was curious, but I was like calmly curious about it. Whereas like before I would have immediately probably sent it to every one of my friends and said, what do you think? And then you get so many people's opinion. Like I just took it, I processed it. I reached out to you and said like, I need to figure out what I want to do with this,
Yeah.
I think there was no doubt that I wanted to go because I was so curious. And then we had like a coaching session together and I felt so good going into the date because I genuinely had no expectations.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see like, do I even still like you? Meaning him. And
yes.
And if I went and I did, amazing. And then I would figure it out from there. What did that mean? I don't know. Like, and if I didn't, well, then that would have been great closure. So it was like I viewed it as a win-win. And then of course I did tell some of my friends about it or whatever. And they had such strong opinions. Don't even think about it. Screw him, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't really need or take anybody else's input. It was just kind of curious to see how everybody felt about it. but I wasn't coming at it really with like any
Yes.
significant emotion, that there was no downside to going, I guess, because I was in such a good place about it.
You trusted yourself. You'd done so much work. You have, high self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had
100%.
no attachment to the outcome.
Yep, 100%.
So
I could go, and
yes.
whatever happened, right? But I didn't.
that.
Yeah, so it was great.
And how was that first date? Randy, what do you remember about the first date?
Actually, we were talking about it this morning. I remember we met at a restaurant before the exhibit, and I got there before her, obviously, because she's always late.
Always.
And she walked in, and like I was just immediately happy to see her, and we hugged, and like I just felt like, oh, there's still like something there, definitely. Like I remember feeling that. And we sat down at the bar and we ordered food, and we were like just sharing food and eating off the same plate like we always did before, and it just felt fairly comfortable right from the start. And we had a really nice time at the Titanic exhibit. And we went back to her apartment afterwards, and we just talked. And it was for a long time. We had a very long talk about what would, if we were going to try it again and get back together, things that would have to happen and what would need to be different this time. And it was actually it was a great first date. Second first date.
Yeah, first date. Yeah. So you felt the connection again immediately.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Definitely.
Yep.
What was that like for you to be able to tell Randy directly, honestly, this is what would have to be different?
Yeah, we were talking about that today, and it was funny because both of us were sort of like, we don't really remember the conversation that well, and you'd think it was such a huge thing that we would remember everything, and I don't remember a lot of it, all the specifics, but I think just sort of in general, I knew I was coming from a place of I was not ever going to go through what I went through last time. Mm-hmm. So just a little quick thing, it's like about halfway through our relationship the first time, we had a very similar experience. We were out for dinner, we were having a good time, and his face just kind of like changed and his demeanor changed. And I was like, what's up? What's going on? And he said, I'm having these feelings. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to be back in such a serious relationship again. And at that point, we had already said, I love you and all this stuff, and kind of shut down on me. And then he was going away to Mexico with his kids the next day. And he was texting me from Mexico. And I was like, nope, thought I was being all strong about it and doing the right thing. And then he came over right after he got back from Mexico and apologized and said, I want to do this. I'm so sorry. I just kind of freaked out. And I didn't ask a lot of questions. I got the answer I wanted. He wanted to get back together or stay together. And I was not securely attached. And my anxious self said, I just want to be with him. He wants to be back together. It is what it is. I didn't really delve into it too much. And then it happened again. And then we, 6 months later or whatever, and then we really broke up.
Okay.
So coming into this date and maybe even considering the possibility, once I knew that I was interested again, if I would be with him, it wasn't even like I had to tell myself like what to do or whatever. My new self, my securely attached self said, nope, this won't work for me again. Like I was just not going to put myself back in that situation. And so, we were just chatting, and I said, while we were apart, I did this program. I'm coming at relationships really from a different place, and I'm not going to set myself up to kind of go through this again. And then he was like, oh, well, what is that program? Because I don't want to end up in the same situations that I've been ending up in. So it was really interesting. Like he would have definitely had to do work in order for me to get back into the relationship.
Yeah.
And I think you and I had spoken about that on the phone. It was like we didn't get too far ahead because it was more like, am I even going to like him, et cetera. Yes. But we were like, but if it does work out, work's going to need to be done. And we didn't know what that looked like yet, but right, you and I had talked about that. And he pretty much just right away, like I was wondering, am I going to have to say like, this is an ultimatum, right? You either do work or we're not going to, like, which ultimately I think probably would have been for me. Like if he wasn't willing to do work, I wasn't going to get back together with him.
Non-negotiable for you.
Yeah. But he just stepped up right away and said, I want to do something like that. Like, is it for men? How do I do that? Like, I don't want to do this again.
I think I may have even before you brought that up, I think I maybe even said like, I know I need to make some changes. I know, otherwise I'm just going to keep
Yeah.
going through this same pattern where I date people for a year and then we break up because
Yeah.
we're out of that, in love stage or whatever. But so it wasn't it wasn't a difficult conversation because I knew I needed to do something
Yeah.
different in order for it to work. And I didn't
And-
want to I didn't want to have things go the same way they did before.
Could you tell also that Nikki was different too?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely very much like
Expressing her boundaries.
yeah, I mean,
needs.
Nikki's always very good at expressing herself. I'm the one who has
Yeah.
communication issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it was very, she was very clear, like, this is what I've done.
She knew what she wanted.
Yeah, and this is what, you'll need to do
Yeah.
if we want to make it work.
All the guys listening, take note, okay? Randy was very curious about doing the work and he wanted to do the work on himself. And you took ownership that, okay, I don't want to do the same thing over again.
Right.
So then I had the amazing opportunity. I think you connected us and then Randy got to meet me.
I know. I mean, it really was great. I mean, and it just, it really makes you think about your past.
Yeah.
And, how you ended up here and why you do some of the things you do. And, why, like, it seems like it should be a very easy thing to express yourself to somebody that you're in love with or to tell them, I'm not happy about this thing that you did. Like that doesn't seem like it should be a hard thing to do, but it's hard for me to do. And I like, why? It's frustrating when you don't know why that is. And to be able to kind of go all the way back to the beginning and figure out the roots of why you are the way you are, it's enlightening.
And you had not done therapy before.
Never.
So you did the deep dive with me, right?
Yeah.
It's like, this is not even intro therapy.
Oh,
this is like rewiring your brain. You got the deep end.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. you got me like raw and unencumbered by anything.
And it was quick. And I just want to shout you out of how open and vulnerable and so willing you were because you get out of this what you put into it.
Right.
Both of you, incredible the ways that you both, showed up to do the work. But yeah, Randy, I mean, do you feel like, I know for men, is there still kind of some of that stigma of don't go to therapy, it's for, or I don't know.
Probably.
What stopped you from doing it in the past?
I didn't think I needed it.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, even when I got divorced, I didn't think that there was a problem there, right? I just knew that things were building up, feelings were building up inside of me for a long time. And then it just got to the point where I couldn't hold them in anymore. And I didn't really think that was a problem per se. And I'd never really thought about it. And then when, it happened with Nikki and then it happened with this other person that I dated in between. And when you realize, hey, there's a pattern here. If I keep doing that, if I don't talk to somebody or do something, I'm just going to keep repeating this for the rest of my life.
It's that common denominator moment.
Yeah.
You go, oh gosh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. And then your willingness to show up, do the work. Nikki, what was it like to watch Randy go through that? Did you see him changing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I have to say, and we've talked about this, I was so impressed that he really wanted to do this. Right?
Yeah.
And not for me, not to get back together with me, but because he wanted a different outcome in his life. And he was all about it. He was excited to do it. And we've always been really open with each other about all of it. I think we both know why we were the way we were and why we made the decisions or the way we showed up to relationships the way that we did. And so he was just really open with me.
Yeah.
And it made it so much easier for me to understand because I'm really communicative. So I was like, I don't get it. What's so hard? It's me. Open your mouth. Just tell me, And so for him to get it, why he was struggling to communicate and share that with me made it so that I understood it and was much more accepting of it and was not so angry about it. I think I almost was offended, why can't you open up to me?
Yeah.
Why do you not feel comfortable opening up to me? And once I understood like what his background was and why he was struggling to communicate, I didn't feel offended anymore. I felt like I wanted to be more nurturing about it and give him like the space to communicate when he was ready to. And I would ask him a lot more at the beginning. He became so communicative. Like there's times I'm like, all right, like we talked about it. It's fine, which is so the opposite of the way we were.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, it's still like, it's not a comfortable thing for me.
Of
like,
course, it's a growth area.
Yeah. There are like times when I still feel like kind of, huddling up in a ball and just withdrawing. But I just like, no, I know that's not the right thing to do. I can't do it.
I think once we start talking about something, he's very open and wants to keep talking. I think that initiating it sometimes is still something. But I can tell now when that's the case. And sometimes I will push him on it. Like, I can tell, like, I know there's something more there, and he may not tell me like right then and there in the moment, but a couple days later, this really was bothering me. But so I think I learned to feel better about why he wasn't communicating and when like I maybe want to push a little bit more and when I don't. And, so I think, but knowing as he was going through the program and then I later shared with him, like why I was doing the things I was doing and what I learned in the program. And I think knowing that like after the fact made it easy for us to work on things.
I love your story as an example of people healing and growing together. Because I think sometimes there's this myth that you have to be perfect and you have to be fully securely attached and emotionally available before you get in a relationship. But the two of you having compassion for one another and healing together and having that safe space with each other to do the work, right? I think that's a really powerful example for people. You don't have to be perfect to create a secure relationship.
You're never going.
It's never. Yeah,
so
it's never.
For that,
perfect is a lie.
Yeah,
we know this.
Well, it's funny. I was telling you, I was reading my beliefs.
Yes, your old beliefs
from 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
and one of them was that a relationship needs to be perfect, and that was like, and if there's a problem, like just keep it inside because you don't want there to be this illusion that things aren't perfect, and obviously that's the exact opposite of what you should do, and it's never going to be perfect anyway. And the best way to resolve an issue is for it to be out in the open. And I'm still working on that, and it's not the easiest thing for me to do. But to Nikki's point, like eventually it comes out, and then we work it out. And
and Randy, so you both know, obviously, we talk about attachment styles a lot. And you would have majority avoidant attachment in the past.
Yes.
Who, now you've moved so much closer to being more securely attached. But with avoidant attachment, we know that it's not that you don't want intimacy. Like you still really want to be close to people.
Right.
But what happens is there's a lot of disconnection from self, disconnection from your emotions, being shut down, not being able to directly communicate. And you learned how to connect to your emotions and connect to your emotional experience. How did that impact not only your amazing relationship with Nikki, but your work, your family, all the other areas of your life? Did it also impact those areas?
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. At work, I've never had that problem. I've always been very confident at work and direct and, speak my mind at work. That's never been an issue. It's always been like on my personal life. And I think it's helped like with my kids, because a lot of times, the answer to an issue would be to say, to say yes, because I want to make sure that they still like spending time with me. And if I tell them no to something, are they going to not want to be with me? They're just going to want to spend more time with their mom. And so I've learned that it's okay to tell them no sometimes, and they're still going to love me. They're not, they're not going to love me any less because I told them they can't have something or can't do something. And I think it's made my relationship with them a lot better.
Yeah.
And actually my parents also, because that's kind of where it all originated.
Yeah.
And I might have, I won't get into the details, but I might have gone a little bit too far on the parents' side. We ended up being a big fight, but I think just kind of letting it out was very
stuff
cathartic
that
for
wasn't
me.
expressed was able to be expressed. And I think what's so beautiful, because we don't even realize this, when we have stuff that we've never expressed to our parents that's there, we pull away from them. So then there's a lot of distance in the relationship. So by being willing to be brave, no matter how it comes out, and actually expressing things, you give yourself the opportunity to build closeness in the relationship again. So for you, Randy, it's like, no matter how it came out, even if it was, a lot, it came out. And then hopefully you can feel, are you building more closeness with them now?
I'd like to think so. I mean, it's
a process.
It's definitely a process. And, it's a little bit more difficult with them because, they live in Florida and I don't see them as much or talk to them as much. But I would like to think that we're slowly moving in that direction, but definitely with my kids, because obviously they're, right up there at the top of my list of people that I care about the most.
It's so important. It's so important to have those skills to just communicate openly and honestly, and then have that intimacy with that.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. Nikki, I want to focus on you for a minute. So I had the pleasure of working pretty closely with you while you were doing the program. So I know a lot about your journey, and I got to see the change myself. One of the things that I just want to acknowledge, I don't know why I feel emotional. I have my period right now, so I'm going to cry. But just this like total shift in your energy and like lightness and joy. And I just felt like watching you change so much and just be filled with so much love. I don't know, I guess I'm getting very like spiritual right now, but just to watch that happen, it was a gift to me. So thank you for that. But tell me, like, what brought you to the program? What changed for you while you were in it? Just tell us a little bit about that journey.
So I think I ultimately got to the program because initially when we first broke up, I don't think I'd ever even listened to a podcast before, but I started like reading and Googling all this stuff about like how to get your ex back, which if anybody's doing that, don't
do that.
There's the worst advice ever.
Oh my gosh. I can't. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
I know if
Please
I think about it now, I'm like, oh, who was I? To even like, and you're in such a bad space.
Yeah.
So you believe things that you're hearing, or you get this hope that makes no sense, or whatever it might be. And then from there, I finally got into a better space about it, and then was really just learning how to heal from that. And so then that's really like podcasts came about eventually. I think we broke up in October, and then COVID hit, so I had really been struggling for months. And then all of a sudden I was isolated, and I work in healthcare. So plenty of people didn't want to be around me because everyone was so afraid of getting COVID. And so it was just a really isolating time. And I started listening to podcasts on like how to heal and how to, get over a breakup and move on. And then from there, I think it just turned out that I was getting into a better space. And I just thought, I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like, why do I keep ending up in these situations? And that's when I started looking around more for podcasts that could kind of help you grow and figure out how to move on. And unlike Randy, I had done so much therapy over the years. So I knew what my problem was. I knew like where the issue came from, but I had no idea how to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
And I think therapy is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I think it's very good at pointing out what the issue is, but not so great at, okay, now what do I do? And I was kind of like in that space.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to go back to therapy because I knew the answer to that question. And I was like, I need to move forward. And then that's when I came upon your podcast and I started listening to it and just really felt like a comfortable space for me. And I didn't really know anything about attachment theory. And wow, when I learned about like anxious attachment, I was like, that's me. Like it was so me.
Yeah.
And I kind of started with that. And then I heard you talking about the program. And somewhere along the way, something was said about if you fast forward 5 or 10 years and you're in the exact same situation, how would you feel?
Yeah.
And I like panicked because I was 48 at the time, 49 at the time or something. And, there's like 50 is like looming out there. And I thought, God, I'm going to be 10 years from now, I'm going to be almost 60 and I'm still going to be single and I'm going to, and it got me like nervous, but nervous in a way of like lit a fire under my butt. Like, you got to do something else.
Yeah.
And that's when I like called to get more information about the program or emailed to get more information. And I was like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
You know?
And you were in and you were really doing the work and really showing up. I could tell you were really ready for this.
Yeah. I felt so stuck. And I was like, I don't want to go through this again. And it wasn't even so much like the breakup with Randy. For me, I hadn't really been in a good relationship or a long relationship that was anything healthy for a very long time. And the long relationships that I had were completely unhealthy.
Yeah.
And then I spent a lot of time when they would end, like wallowing in the misery of them being over and what could I have done differently. And it was just such like a time suck and such like an energy suck. And like, I just didn't have the energy to do that again.
Yeah.
So I took the energy and put it somewhere else.
And I feel like you're a perfect example of you really worked on the relationship with you first. Like there was a lot there in your relationship with yourself.
Yep. Absolutely. And the relationship with my parents and how it pertained to like my brother and growing up in that house.
Yes.
And that was what I had learned and I knew from therapy. And so I kind of like rehashed that out with you guys because I kind of already knew where I was coming from, but kind of just brought it all back up again to figure out how to
actually let it go
and
move through it.
And letting go of it was a big piece of it too.
Yeah.
Like holding on to anger of what it was. And I grew up in an amazing household, which was also so like ironic, something I couldn't figure out. I had these amazing parents.
Yeah.
And they had a loving, great relationship. And I was like, why am I not emulating that? You know? And then I had like kind of a lot of anger about like, why am I not capable of having like a good relationship? Like, and you find out that it sort of came from when you grew up, you felt angry about it. And I could not let that go.
Yeah.
And that was one of the other things that like really resonated with me when I was doing the program was you say a lot of like, your parents made mistakes and they did the best they could. It's not, but they did the best they could. It's right. And it really made me sort of understand where my mother was coming from and not be angry about it anymore. And almost feel sorry because she was really trying to do the best she could. And, you know, and I had big conversations with her about it. I had a lot of conversations actually with my brother about it, which is something I've never, ever do. And so I kind of just let all that go. And I, like Randy was saying, I have better relationships like with my mother and my brother now. Unfortunately, my father had passed away, but, you know, and the program really let me do that, which was not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah, it was a bonus.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it so much. Oh, and just being able to see the change. And then for both of you, I'm curious, obviously doing this inner work, rewiring your belief systems about yourself and about how you show up in a relationship, all that work, how do you feel like it impacted how you show up for each other? Are there things that you do differently in this relationship compared to past relationships?
I mean, without a doubt. You know, for me, it just always comes back to the communication piece and being open and vulnerable and just talking about things. And I think in our first go around and really in my marriage, like any significant relationship I've had, we never really fought or argued because I had this vision in my head that that's a bad thing. And if you're not fighting or arguing, then everything's great. So you're better off just not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize it's normal and natural for us to disagree. I mean, we live in the same space together and we're together a lot. So of course you're not always going to agree, right? It seems so obvious. Like it's something wrong if you never disagree or argue.
Yeah.
But I've learned to feel okay with us having an argument or a disagreement, and we just talk about it and then we move on, we resolve it, right? So that was just a completely foreign concept to me, and just doing that on a regular basis it just makes such a huge difference.
And you can repair quickly after conflict.
Oh, absolutely.
And then conflict, I think for so many of us with insecure attachment styles, we learned at a young age that conflict is scary, conflict is bad, and the relationship might end if there's conflict.
Right.
But then the securely attached beliefs are conflict helps me grow. We can overcome any conflict and it can actually make our relationship stronger, right?
Yeah, I mean, we see each other's point of view and where we're coming from on things, as opposed to just each of us simmering and saying, "Oh, I'm right," or she's saying I'm right, and then we don't talk about it, and we don't, it's just things that are just you hold on to the bitterness, right? And but now, like, oh, okay, I understand where you were coming from on that, and so it's just it definitely makes a huge
That's a
difference.
huge shift.
Yeah.
Nikki, what about for you? What is different about?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about this because for me, the bigger issue was getting into a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
I didn't even remember what it was like to be in a relationship and how I reacted to somebody. And I was struggling to find a relationship that was healthy enough that I would even get the opportunity to have conflict and have like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was like, I think the bigger part of the program for me. And then but also I was by myself for many, many years and I'm very used to being alone. And so for me, I had to like learn how to accept somebody in my space and recognize that I have to make compromises, which I wasn't great at doing. And then also, just in general to be vulnerable enough to let somebody into my life, to recognize that I'm not always right, that, my opinion isn't always the right opinion or and I didn't really, of course I did that with friends and with work and stuff, but I didn't have to do that with somebody like living in my space. And so we were talking about like when conflict does arise and then we get to see each other's point, there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, I wasn't even looking at it that way. Right. And so I had a really sort of, I think, selfish perspective because I was alone for so long and breaking down that wall and really being vulnerable. I was fine to tell somebody how I felt, but sometimes it was almost even like aggressive or assertive, right? Like I never hide how I feel. I'm going to tell you how I feel. But I'm learning that there's more of like an art to doing it without coming at someone and saying like, this is how I feel. Let me tell you now. And, you have to react to that or whatever. It's a more I'm working on it, but it's a more gentle approach, more vulnerable approach, I guess I would say.
Yes, I love
that
you said that. To really share how we feel, it's so vulnerable. And then to be curious about the other person is also vulnerable and brave, because sometimes we're really scared to know how they feel.
Yeah.
So, right? It's like it's the vulnerable thing.
Yeah.
I
but
think
like,
also,
I was just going to say that definitely the approach, the approach and the delivery makes a big difference.
Yes.
Because the message, she'll be like, what do you mean? I just was saying, whatever. But it's the way that sometimes it's the way that it comes across. That also makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's a difference in vulnerability because I don't feel vulnerable if I'm being aggressive or assertive, telling someone how I feel. I feel vulnerable to say like, I'm hurt. Like,
the emotions.
And being more gentle with it is more vulnerable. I can tell you how I feel, but it took the vulnerability piece to
and then to have a secure relationship where both people are showing up. It allows you to have those corrective experiences with each other where you learn that it's safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So good.
I would just like to confirm that this is being recorded because Nikki acknowledged that she wasn't always right before earlier. So
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. All the husbands around the world thinking the same thing.
They're so jealous. Like, damn, he has it.
Anytime I tell my fiance that he's right, he says, "Can you say that again?" So
pulls the phone out and
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so I have so many questions for you guys, but this was an audience question actually that I think fits nicely here. In a world of so many options, which it's true, you're in New York, you have so many options here. Oh my gosh. How did you know that you had found the one? Like, I guess, was there moments for each of you where you were like, yep, this is my person?
I mean, we did talk about, well, I mean, it's fun. I saw you react when when she said,
So many
"You're in
options.
New York, so many
Yeah.
options."
Yeah.
'Cause-
I know
But-
people think, I know we think that, but I do hear about the
Yeah,
New
there
York
are a
dating
lot
scene.
of people.
There's a lot of people. That's a good clarification.
Yeah.
There's so many people.
Right. Perhaps not a lot of people you want to date, but there's definitely a lot of people.
Okay. Thank you for that
Yeah.
clarification. But yeah, how did you know that you were each other's person?
I mean, it's just a comfort thing, right? When you know that you want to be with this person more than any other person, and it's not just love or physical attraction or anything like that, because you could have that with other people, but it's just that when you'd rather spend your time with this person as opposed to anybody else, and it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're just sitting around on the couch or having a conversation or just making dinner at home and listening to music, you can't imagine that you would want to be with anybody else besides this person. And we were talking about this also, like, I don't know, is there the one? I don't know. There's probably multiple people out there. I don't know that there's one person that you could have it with, but I think that's the key thing, is not just loving someone or enjoying their company or being attracted to them, but it's like that you would rather be with this person.
You
than
both
anybody
choose
else.
each other.
Yeah.
I
That's
would say
beautiful.
something similar. I don't know that there's the one, you know?
I don't believe in soulmates. I believe
Yeah.
that you have two people who they choose each other. There's so many people we could make a relationship work with,
Yeah.
right?
I think so too.
But
We
you
actually
both
kind of,
choose each other.
yeah, we joke about that. Because so much of our story actually seems like it was like, quote, meant to be. We actually were born in the same hospital. Like there's just some weird, his kids' names, their middle names are my name and my middle name. Like, so there's some like weird coincidences. So we kind of jokingly will say like hashtag meant to be, right? Like, but like, and I actually inscribed that on his ring.
Oh my god!
But it's a joke. Like,
yeah, because you
um,
guys know it's really about the work.
yeah, are there other people out there that I could have had a great relationship if the timing worked out and they were willing to put in I believe so. I don't believe in soulmates either. But what makes me know I made the right decision and makes me so happy and know that, you know, he is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with is like, I truly, truly like him. He is my best friend. He is the person that I want to be with above and beyond like anybody else. And like, and I've said this to him before, like we say, I love you to each other a lot. But like, I'm always like, I can't believe how much I like you. Like, I've never been somebody who wants to spend a lot of time with one particular person, friends, family, it doesn't matter. I need my space. I want to be with other people. And I just love being with him so much. We have so much fun together. We laugh, we joke. Even if I'm not in a good mood or not having a good day, I still want him to be around. And, you know, that's just something I've never had with anybody else. So
That's so beautiful.
Well, you know, before I moved in to the apartment, I know that was like a big concern for you, right? Like,
Yeah.
am I going to need my own space? Am I going to want to have a night where I'm just like, all right, we're going to do our own things tonight, but it hasn't materialized at all.
No, we do our own things. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
You know,
Of
we go out with
Yeah.
individual
Yes.
friends and stuff like that and have like work things and, you know, and I love my girlfriends. I love going out with them separately. But yeah, we live in a 1-bedroom apartment and
I love it.
there's like literally no issue. Like, you know, and I think that's a hard thing to find.
Yeah. And I love, I mean, Randy, you're such a kind person, like a genuinely good
Yeah.
person, right? And I think about that way with my fiance as well. It's like, this is someone who I'm so proud to call them
Yeah.
a person. And like they can hang out with my friends and it just feels great. And
Right.
you guys have that same thing.
We do.
Definitely.
You genuinely like each other.
We really do. And also, there's no one else's opinion that I care to take or trust. Like, if I have a question, if I'm not sure about something that I want to do, or, you know, I have him there. I run like a lot of things
Yeah.
by him, and that's so awesome too.
That's
you know,
so special.
to like really value his opinion.
Yes. Yes. I'm going to go to this question. What's one thing you wish more people understood about finding love later in life? Because we do have a lot of people who are listening. They're in their 50s and they kind of give up at some point and they go, okay, forget it. I don't want that for anyone. Like, I think you both are a beautiful example of you can find love at any age.
Yep. I'll answer this because Randy had been married before and I had not. And
Yeah.
I did have some, serious relationships here and there, but nothing in retrospect that amounted to much.
Yeah.
Never give up, because if you want it, you can find it and you can have it. And I know it's so easy to say now, but I wouldn't have done it any other way in retrospect.
Yeah.
Because I'm a completely different person than I was when I was younger. And I think that when you I see it with a lot of my friends too. I think that when you meet someone when you're younger, there's an excellent chance that as you grow apart. And I did all my growing for the most part. I mean, I guess I still have some growing to do, but I did so much work and really know who I am when I got into this relationship. So we grow together now.
Yeah. There's a
Because-
rock solid foundation
Yeah.
for you to enter in.
And all that growth that you have to do in your 20s, your 30s, like that's, at some point you just realize who you are.
Yeah.
And then I think you're kind of coasting it out the rest of the time where like, this is me. And so
Yeah.
I think our relationship is so much healthier because we're older.
Yes.
And I think there's a much, much less of a chance that we would grow apart as time goes on, as opposed to growing together.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that goes back to, all these people who are turning 29 and they're freaking out that they
Right.
haven't found
Oh,
their
it's crazy.
person. It's
Enjoy,
like,
Yeah.
enjoy
that time.
find out who you are,
Right.
fall in love with yourself,
Yeah.
build your life, build your friends.
Yeah.
And I have so many experiences by myself or with my friends traveling and doing
Yeah.
all these great things that if I had gotten married young, I wouldn't have done those things.
Yeah.
And they're amazing things and enjoy them. And I think
Yes.
that's also one of the things I sort of learned after I went through the program, and I felt so much more secure. Like I knew I would attach securely
Yeah.
to the next relationship. It gave me some breathing room. And I was really enjoying being single and having my space. And
that.
I got my dog and, I was just really enjoying the space that I was in, almost because I knew that at some point I would attach securely in the future. I didn't have to worry about it so much.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm doing all those things now. Like I live kind of the opposite, right? I met my ex-wife
Yes.
in college and we got married early. We did all those things that you're quote unquote supposed to do, right? Had kids and
Yeah.
all that. And now even though I'm not single, obviously, but I feel like I'm enjoying the best of both worlds, right? I'm living in Manhattan. I've, enjoying having a great relationship, but I'm also just enjoying my life more. My kids are
Yes.
older now. They're adults. We love hanging out with them. It's just, I think in many ways it's easier to meet someone when you're a little bit older. You don't have that pressure of having kids and trying to save up money to buy a house and for college and all those things that are huge stressors for couples. I mean, money is probably the number one stressor for a younger couple. And we don't have that. So it just eliminates that as an issue.
And you're building the relationship with yourself, it sounds like really connecting to yourself and what you want and doing the things you like to do and connecting with Nikki at the same time. So that's beautiful.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
And I love, Randy, your story about obviously going through marriage. And I think a lot of people do this. They get married young and they self-abandon. They realize that, oh my gosh, I'm just kind of in the marriage, but I'm not actually really connected to myself. I'm not connected to my emotions. But you kind of being on the other side of it, being willing to take that journey of, okay, now I can connect to me instead of staying in. I can't tell you how many people listen to this show who stay in marriages that they're actually like totally struggling in, right? And it's like slowly killing them.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this maybe yesterday. Like so many people after I was newly divorced, so many men that I was we were friendly with, a couple said to me, I'm so envious of you, or I'm jealous, like you had the guts to do this where I would never be able to do that. And I didn't think of it that way. I was just thinking of, we only have one life to live and we all should try to be as happy as we possibly can. And why should we just go through the motions on something just so we could say that, okay, I didn't get divorced. Like, nobody's giving you an award for that at the end, right?
For being unhappy.
Right. For being unhappy. I mean, nobody's right. You're not getting a badge of honor for toughing it out, right? Sticking it out. So I mean, that was a lot of what my impetus was, and said I deserve to be happy.
Yeah.
I've given him a lot of praise for that too, and a lot of
Yeah.
credit, because that is a really brave thing to do.
It
And
is.
when I use the word brave, he's like, "Well, I don't think that I'm brave because of it." And I was like, "I do." What a
Yeah.
scary proposition,
Yes.
right? To change your whole life, but to recognize, like, I deserve to be happy.
Yes. Absolutely. I think that's for anybody listening that's really stuck. I mean, obviously you have to go through your own journey, and I think doing whatever you can to say, okay, can this marriage work? Like, obviously see, but if you realize this can't work, I'm unhappy, then guess what? The other person is unhappy, and both of you deserve to part ways. So anyways, I think your journey of, wow, you did the brave thing, and now you found this, I mean, amazing relationship, and you got to intentionally build it this time
Yeah.
and show up as your authentic self and learn how to still have a relationship with you and a wonderful relationship with Nikki. This is what we call interdependence instead of, being codependent or hyper independent.
Yeah, definitely.
Like interdependence.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful example of it is never too late to create the relationship you want.
Never.
So you two are so inspiring. I love this. Oh my goodness. I have so many things I can ask you. I think, okay, let's go with this one. I want to ask both of you this, and I'll start with Nikki. For people who are hesitant about doing this deep work on themselves, doing something like the program, what would you say to them?
Well, for starters, I have 2 friends actually doing it right now.
I love that.
And so shout out to them. I'm so proud of you guys and happy that you guys are doing it. Like, it makes me so happy. Here's the thing that I would say. Working on yourself seems very scary, I think, to people. You don't know what you're going to kind of realize, what's going to come up about your past, or some people, I think, feel like, I know enough about myself, I don't have to do it, whatever it might be. What I can say is that remembering the feeling of being anxiously attached and getting into relationships and being excited to be in a relationship, and then those horrible feelings of all the things that come along with being anxiously attached. This is so much less scary to go through and so much less uncomfortable, right? I think it's more scary to think about the fact that you might keep repeating the same patterns and end up alone. I think it's more uncomfortable to show up in relationships anxiously attached than any of the scariness or any of the discomfort you're going to have going through this program. So do the work. It's so important. It's empowering. It's freeing. Just do it. Oh my God, it was like the best decision I made.
Oh, I love that so much. That is such a good point. Doing the work is not as scary as repeating patterns.
It's really not. And it's, I have a bunch of single friends, and when, we talk about, the relationships that they're in, or they're dating someone and they're calling to say, like, well, he used to call this many times, but now he's only calling this. And I almost like forgot what that felt like, but I remember, and it was terrible, right? I would go through old text messages and be like, well, he texted me 5 times that day, but only once today. What does that mean? And, all that insecurity and that anxiety, it feels so bad.
It takes away so much of your energy.
It takes away so much of your energy, so much of your joy. And not only the joy in the relationship, but joy in relationships with other people. Because I would be thinking about that, looking at my phone. I haven't heard from him or whatever. And then you're not even present in the moment with wherever you are or whatever you're doing or who you're with. And that's such an uncomfortable feeling. I know it was for me. So if you feel that discomfort, you can get rid of it. And there's going to be some uncomfortable moments as you're going through your past and your relationship inventory and learning about yourself, and maybe bringing up some bad things with, like, relationships with your family or whatever. But all that discomfort is nowhere near as uncomfortable as continuing to show up the way that you're showing up now.
Such a good point. And Randy, I want to ask you specifically, men who are maybe hesitant about doing the work, because I do think there's still a stigma around it. Like, what would you say to any guys who are listening who they're like, oh gosh, Randy's super brave, I probably need to do this, but I'm scared. What would you want them to know?
I mean, I would say if they're listening to this or watching this, they're probably in a place where they feel like they need to do something different or make changes, just take that extra step. And because to Nikki's point, like not doing it is much scarier and worse than whatever discomfort you're going to feel about trying to work on yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
it's enlightening. I mean, it brings things to the forefront that you might not have even thought about, and it'll just make you feel better about yourself because there are reasons for why you do things the way you do them. It's not just what's wrong with me, like why
Yes.
can't I do this the way that I feel like I should. It's a product of your upbringing and relationships you had as a kid and as you were growing up and all the things that brought you to this spot. And just, you know, just do it.
Just do it. I love that. I love it so much. This interview has been incredible. I could talk to you guys for 4 or 5 hours. Let's be real.
We will, Ephra.
Yes. I want to ask you both, what are you most excited about in this next chapter? You're married, you know. What are you looking forward to in your relationship right now?
Yeah. So we were realizing on the way over here, we're back together for
about 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And
Yay.
so much has happened in that time, right? We moved in together. We got married. Like we've just already done like so much. I think I'm excited. We just bought a house down the shore. So we're going to have that as a vacation home.
Love it.
So now we're like decorating it and whatever. I'm really excited to have that as like our sort of like, I'm almost excited to like do nothing, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I want to
Stable
have
routine.
Yeah. No craziness of a wedding. And also too, I think we were so excited to get together, be back together that we were like out for dinner all the time and constantly traveling and
Right.
constantly doing things. And now I'm really just enjoying, we stay home a lot and cook, just open a bottle of wine. And I'm excited to just like be down the shore and just relax and just
Amazing.
spend quality time together doing nothing, if you will, like with
I
our
love
dog.
it.
And
That's the joy right
Yeah,
there.
the regular routine can be fun.
Oh, absolutely.
yes. Not,
Our regular routine is fun.
It's fun.
So we don't
out
need
of
to
the quote in love stage.
Yes.
Right? And just enjoy each other for,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be crazy exciting. And it's just, there's an excitement there, even without the external.
The quality time together, doing all the small things.
Yep.
That's my favorite. I love going to Costco with my partner. It's one of my favorite times
We
together.
We go to Costco all the time. It's so
You
exciting.
guys get it.
Yeah. We just went to IKEA the other day.
Yeah.
It was like
Love that
so much
too.
fun.
That's the joy of the real secure relationship. All those little things are fun. It's so enjoyable.
Yep.
I love it. You two have been amazing. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you want to share with the audience?
I'm really glad that you asked though about like, why do the program or whatever, because I just like, I still remember, you know, like that my single self and what that was like. And I'm just glad I got to basically say the things that I said because I know a lot of people that listen to the podcast are single women.
Yes.
And to just encourage people to, you know, go through the program to I guess also I would like to say, before I got back together with Randy, I became securely attached, really worked on myself.
Yes.
And had other relationships to show up in that, you know, maybe lasted one date, maybe lasted 5 dates, like whatever it might be. And that experience in itself was so much better than the dating I had done before. You know, I think I worried a lot. I stopped worrying about, did they like me? Are they going to call me? Are they going to ask me out again? And I really started showing up in a way where I was like, I don't think I like that person and I don't care if I ever hear from them again. Or I'm excited to hear from them, but knowing that if I didn't, that was okay. And I focused a lot more on, do I like them than do they like me?
I love it.
And so just doing the relationship, finding myself in a more secure situation, more secure attachment style made dating so much better, so much more enjoyable, so much less pressure. And so, yes, it's amazing that I found the person that, you know, this amazing person that I'm spending the rest of my life with. But even the journey along the way was so much better.
Who you became a different version of yourself. And even that transformation in and of itself was worth it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even if it didn't end up with the you know, the
Yeah.
pot of
Even
gold
if you
at the
would
end
have
of the rainbow.
met, yes, our lovely pot of gold, even if you would have met someone, 5 years from now
Yeah.
or whatever timeline it would have been, the transformation itself, you became a different person.
Yep. That process along the way. Absolutely. I was enjoying being single more. I was enjoying dating more.
I love it. I love it. So good.
Yeah.
Randy, anything I didn't ask that you would want to share?
No, the only thing I would say is like, and I guess I alluded to it a little bit before, like I would think a lot of times like, what's wrong with me? Or like, I feel like, why am I not feeling feelings that I feel like, I should be feeling? Like, what's wrong? Like, and I would just say, maybe this is more directed to guys again, like, don't feel like there's something wrong with you, or like that something that can't be corrected, and just, just work on yourself. And
Yes.
if for no other reason than just so you feel better about yourself, and then it'll definitely translate into any future relationship you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there doesn't have to be something wrong with you. There's not something wrong with you. It's that you deserve to understand, where did I learn to be this way?
Yep.
And to heal it.
I mean, there's a reason that, that everybody fits into these 3 main attachment styles.
Right.
It's because it's not just coincidence that like this is how, it's just the product of the way you were brought up. And I remember when I first read the book, I was like, wow, it's like somebody followed me around.
Yeah.
Like how did they know I was like this? Right. I mean, so obviously it's a very common thing. There's nothing wrong with fitting into one bucket or the other. It's just knowing what to do to move forward.
And you all, and everyone deserves to understand that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big key. So you just, and it's not just to get your relationship, which is amazing, but it's also for your own healing and your own growth.
Almost more so.
Yeah.
More
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
I always say the secure relationship that you attract is just this beautiful bonus to you becoming securely attached. It really is.
And I let me add one other thing. I was attracted to other people that I wouldn't normally have been attracted to.
I love that.
And those types of people were attracted to me. So you put it out there, and and you're getting that back, right?
Yes.
And I wouldn't have wanted to be with someone that was available or that was secure, because I didn't feel that I was like worthy of that. And I learned that in the program. And so then you start attracting those types of people, and you're willing to accept it.
Yes.
Whereas before I would not have been willing to accept that.
You're willing to accept it instead of push it away or sabotage it.
Sabotage it, for sure. 100%.
That'll be our second episode.
Yeah.
Next time I have you back on, we'll dive into that. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you both for taking the time to come on.
Thank you.
Thanks for being vulnerable. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by you. They're going to benefit from your story. I love your love story. I'm forever cheering you on. Hopefully you're coming to my wedding. We haven't talked about that yet, but I love that. And just, I'm so happy that I get to spend time with you and just see you where you are. It's amazing. So thank you for the privilege of that. It's beautiful.
Our pleasure. I'm so happy to be here. And we were so happy that you came to our wedding. You were one of the first people that RSVP'd, and we were like, he had said, she's not going to come. And I was like, she's going to come.
Oh yeah. I'm not missing that. 100%. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
we were
was
so happy
definitely there. Yeah. No, it was so beautiful. I love being there. The love that you guys have for each other. It's really amazing. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. And of course, as always, I'm wishing you all high self-worth and great relationships. Until next time.